Hi everybody, it's Richard here and welcome to another video. This is a response to a video James Griffiths put up yesterday where he showed an album and then another album that reminded him of that album, so two albums that are almost like a pair in his mind, even though they may have nothing in common, but when he thinks of one he thinks of the other. In a lot of the cases the reason why he thought that is because he got the two albums at the same time. I'm going to show some of that, but there's also other reasons as well where I would always group two albums together. And we'll start off with, before I go on, I will show a couple of singles at the end. Okay, the first one up, this is David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, to give it its full title. And I bought this in the summer of 1980. The reason I bought it was I was hugely into Mark Bolan and T-Rex, and at that stage I had bought everything I could from the record shops because the majority of his stuff was deleted. And I said to my brother, who else can I get into? And he says, well, if you like Mark Bolan you should like David Bowie. Then I asked him what should I go for, and he says go for Ziggy Stardust, apparently it is very good. He originally had Aladdin Sane but then sold it. So I couldn't listen to that, so I went down, I think it was a Monday or a Tuesday of the week, because we were on our summer holidays, and I bought this and this blew me away. And then I think it was 2 days later I went down and bought Hunky Dory. So Ziggy and Hunky were the first two albums. Ziggy and Hunky Dory were the first two albums that I bought of David Bowie, and I always sort of group them together. And I think most people do, because whenever you say what David Bowie albums should you start with, they mostly say go for either Hunky Dory or Ziggy Stardust. Okay, two that are quite obvious, and this is Paul Simon's Still Crazy After All These Years, and this one, Art Garfunkel's Breakaway. Both were released on the same day, and both feature the Simon and Garfunkel song My Little Town. So the two albums from 1975, you think of one, you think of the other. Another two obvious ones are Paul and Linda McCartney's Ram and John Lennon's Imagine. And you think of these not just because of the Lennon-McCartney connection, but because of the spat between the two of them. Started off the Ram and with the Too Many People, and then taken to ridiculous levels on Imagine with How Do You Sleep. But yeah, they're two excellent albums, but of the two I still go for Ram. I just can't listen to How Do You Sleep, I've said that before, and it destroys the album for me, but two excellent albums, but I still go for Ram. Okay, another two quite obvious ones. Nick Lowe's Labour of Lust from 1979 and Dave Edmunds' Repeat When Necessary from 1979. These are two Rockpile albums, and basically they were recorded at the same time. I think the way they did it for the sessions was that the Labour of Lust was recorded during the day. They went out and got something to eat or something to drink more like, or something to smoke even more like, and came back and did the Repeat When Necessary. Two really good albums, but I do prefer the poppier of Labour of Lust. Repeat When Necessary is excellent as well, but it's more rock and roll rockabilly, but I'm just a huge Nick Lowe fan, so it wins for me. The US version of Labour of Lust is probably even better than the British one, because it features the excellent American Squirm, whereas this one doesn't. Okay, another two compilations this time, and from 1973, Sladist by Slade, huge album, #1 in the charts, stayed about the charts for quite a while. And The Arrivals, Great Hits by T-Rex, 1973, number 23 in the charts, and fell out of the charts after a couple of weeks. Two excellent albums, one hugely successful, one not. What's my favourite? I don't know. I'm probably going to have to say Sladist because it's the one I had heard first, even though The Great Hits is absolutely fantastic. I don't know, as an album I'm going to say Slatest, but overall with the songs I'm going to say Great Hits, so I'm copping out a little bit. But two really good albums from '73. Okay, this one here is Bow Wow Wow, See Jungle, Go Join Your Gang, Yes, City All Over, Go Ape Crazy. And I'm so proud of myself that I was able to say that in one go without looking. This was released in 1981, near the end of '81, but whenever I hear this I automatically think of Kings of the Wild Frontiers by Adam and the Ants, and the reason being is that the Bow Wow Wow were actually the Ants Mark I with Annabella Lewin as lead singer, and this is Ants Mark II with Marco Perrone and Merrick, Terry Lee Mile and Kevin Mooney. They're both very Burundi drum heavy and very similar, and two absolutely excellent albums, so these two always go together. Okay, these two go together for a completely different reason. The Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 and Albert Hammond's Greatest Hits. And the reason why these go together is that they remind me of my student days. I had taped Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 from my brother's LP, and I had a tape of the Albert Hammond's Greatest Hits, and me and my girlfriend used to play those two albums consistently, one after the other, and they just almost are now joined at the hip. I find it harder to listen to the Wilburys Volume 1 now, because I think maybe we might have overplayed it a little bit too much. Maybe not, because we played this one as well quite a bit. But yeah, these two albums, they go together as well. Okay, two albums that I never owned, but I borrowed from a friend and had one on one side of a C90 tape and the other on the other side. One is Quick Step and Sidekick by the Thompson Twins from 1983, and Blancmange's Happy Families, which I also believe is 83, it might be the end of 82, but my friend Wayne had both these albums. He lent me them both, I taped them, and I really do enjoy them. I still enjoy them. I saw Thompson Twins support David Bowie in Edinburgh in 1983, which is the reason why I wanted to buy it, and I had No One Loving Your Side, We Are Detective, I'm Watching. But the one that I really like off this is a song called Lies. Sorry, that's it. No, that's it there. And I just love that Blancmange album. Brilliant. Okay, two more from 1973. David Bowie again, Pin-Ups. Brian Ferry's These Foolish Things. And the reason being is both from '73 and both cover versions, full cover versions. My favourite is Bowie's Pin-Ups, without a shadow of a doubt, but my favourite song off both albums is Brian Ferry's These Foolish Things. So those two, one always reminds me of the other. I think there was a little bit of a, not a spat, but whenever Bowie released Pin-Ups, I think he may have been aware that Brian Ferry was doing These Foolish Things, and there was maybe a little bit of beef between the two of them. But still, they're two decent albums, Pin-Ups especially. Okay, these two are again different reasons. Nick Lowe again, and this is the Jesus of Cool, and this is the Police, Zenyatta Mandata. And the reason why these always remind me or go together is that I bought these from my brother's best friend very cheaply at the same time, both of them. I didn't want the Nick Lowe one because I had never heard of him, but he says you'll love the song I Love the Sound of Breaking Glass. He was looking for money, and I bought the Zenyatta Mandata because I loved Don't Stand So Close to Me. It turned out I preferred the Nick Lowe album to the Police album, but I do love the both of them now. If I had to pick, I would probably still say the Nick Lowe one, but the Zenyatta Mandata is actually my second favourite Police album, and on occasions it is my favourite, but two excellent albums again. Okay, now there's a story behind this one, and Adam and the Ants again, and this is Prince Charming, and this one is Queen's Greatest Hits. This is not the original, this is the reissued double album. The reason why these two excuse me, always remind me of each other is that they were released a week apart. And I remember when this came out, although I didn't buy it, I was still a Queen fan, and it got to number 2 in the charts, and I thought, right, hopefully it gets to number 1 the next week. But then I found out that this was being released the next week, and I thought, well, that's it, Queen are not going to get to number 1. And I was a little bit anti Adam and the Ants at the time because they were so successful and so teeny boppery. And to my surprise, this came in at number 2, and this jumped up 1 place to number 1 and stayed there for about 4 weeks, and I was delighted. Now, I absolutely love this album now. I really do. I was just delighted it didn't get to number 1. It would have been great if this had got to number 1 for a week and then this got to number 1, you know, looking back. But at the time I was just so delighted that this got to the number 1 position. We're getting down rightly. I'm going to show a CD, and this is another obvious one. And this is Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory, and I automatically think of Blur's The Great Escape. The Britpop battle. There was a big battle over the single which preceded both these albums, where Blur won with Country House over Roll With It, but without a doubt Oasis won the album battle. But I still prefer this. I think it's a better album. It's more varied. I think I do prefer Blur to Oasis anyway, so The Great Escape, great album, 1995, and What's the Story is very good as well, but I do prefer it definitely maybe. Okay, a couple more pairs of albums, and this is another weird one, and this is Paul Simon's Graceland, and I automatically think of Paul McCartney's Press to Play. The reason is not because they're both called Paul, but because they were both released around the same time in 1986. I was a huge Paul Simon fan. My brother was a huge Beatles fan and Paul McCartney fan, although he didn't like Pipes of Peace. And I was saying that this is 100 times better than this, and he disagreed. And we thought, right, we'll see what the chart positions are, and this kicked. This is Backside. Now, looking back, I love the both of them. I actually really love this album now, much more than I ever did. I would still say I'd have to give it to Paul Simon's Graceland, you know, because it is an absolute classic. But don't get me wrong, Press to Play is brilliant as well. So those two, always think of the, whenever I think of one, I always think of the other. And lastly with the albums, and I only got one of these albums lately. This is Leonard Cohen's I'm Your Man from around 1988, I think it is. But I always thought of this album, even though I'd never heard it and I never owned it, and that's Jennifer Warren's famous Blue Raincoat. They both feature First We Take Manhattan, and this one is all Leonard Cohen covers. And First We Take Manhattan, you know, I heard this version first before I actually heard the Leonard Cohen one, but the two of them tend to go together for me. Okay, so that's some albums. Now I do have some singles, just a few, only 6, 3 pairs. And again, Bow Wow Wow come up, and that picture comes up, I'm sorry, but this is Go Wild in the Country, and this is XTC, Senses Working Overtime, and I bought these at the same time, the same day, same shop, so that's why I think of them. These two here I also bought the same time, the same day, same shop. Don't laugh, but I did buy Star Sound, Stars on 45, the Beatles medley, and on the same day I bought Ten-Pole Shooter's Swords of a Thousand Men, which is fantastic. And the B-side of this is fantastic as well, a song called Love and Food. And lastly, I didn't buy any of these at the time, but I always seem to think of one when I think of the other. And they both got to number 1 in the charts near the end of 1980. And this is ABBA's Super Trooper, which I did love at the time, but I never bought it at the time. And this is The Tide Is High by Blondie, which I hated at the time, but I love it now. Don't know why I think of one, I think of the other. So that's my response to James's video. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're not all suffering from cabin fever. I know it's a horrible time, and just be safe. just don't do anything silly. Okay, that's me for now. I hope to have another video quite soon. All the best now. Bye bye.